Hello, everybody. My name is Bill Oliver, and this is my channel, Boston Devops Bill. And over the last, I'd say 3-4 episodes, we've been working on our syncing IP addresses across all of our virtual hosts. So just to recap, we began by writing each one of our virtual hosts that's being provisioned. We wrote their IP to a file. Then what we did was, by defining the shares to that file within our JSON file, once that file was written, we defined a timer system using systemd to write, to have a timer wake up, call a service, and then that service called our update host file, which read our IP file and then wrote our host file. So we got all that working in our last episode. But the one thing which we don't have the ability to do right now is to go to each one of these provision boxes and check to see if it can find the other online. And the reason being is because we haven't deployed it to test prod. When I did my development, it was all on build prod. But what happens if we created another machine? How would that machine know about this whole interface which we have? So what we're going to do is we're going to write a deploy system. And the deploy is going to be within our Vagrant file. It's going to look inside of our share, and if you recall, one of the last things we did before we left the previous episode was to ensure that all of our code was located inside of our media sf_admin share. So not only do we have the IP file, which is written every time a host come up, but we also have right now, we have the update host file timer, we have the update host file service, and we have the update host file shell script. Now each one of these gets deployed into a different location because, if you recall, we need to put our systemd timers, and this is what represents our systemd timer in service. So our systemd units go into our etc. systemd directory on each one of these virtual hosts, and any future virtual hosts we'll want it there also. Then we want to deploy our update host file over to the root directory in each one of our virtual machines. So what we're going to do today is we're going to build this within our Vagrant file so that each time we provision a node, they have the full IP system installed on their virtual host, and they'll know about each one of these, each virtual host we define. Okay, so it's a good conclusion to our project here, where we can have it deploy, and all of our things which we're deploying right now will in the future be deployed by Puppet. So we're not at that point just yet, but why don't we go ahead and why don't we put this in and see how it works, and let's go pound some keys. Okay, let's jump into our Vagrant file, and what we're going to do is we're going to begin by defining what's going to be copied and where it's going to be copied to. Okay, now unfortunately, the way that the permissions work is that we won't be able to copy directly into the locations where we want to put them. We'll have to actually stage them up on each of the VM machines, and we're going to put them inside the temp directory. And inside the temp directory, we're going to put all of our files, and then we're going to write a separate little script to copy them from the temp file using sudo and deploying them into the proper location. So why don't we begin by actually defining that first copy from our host machine to our VM machine. And to do that, stop saying And to do that, we're going to scroll to the bottom of the file, and we're going to use the VM provision command. So there's a command that allows us to influence the provisioning of our devices, and we're going to define, let me see, use define host rather, because define host represents the current host which we're building. And so for this current host, we want to use the VM and provision. And within VM provision, we're going to use the file command to copy the file from our host over to the temp directory. And the file command, and this is a vagrant command. So we're going between customized directives like VB customize to call, to create share folders. But now we're going back to vagrant, and we're going to use the file command, and we're going to specify the source. And our source is going to be our dir share, because remember, we call it dir share on our host, and we call it SF admin on our VM machines. So we're going to call it DM share, and let's copy the update host file .service file, and we're going to specify a destination, and we're just going to copy it into /temp/update host file .service. Yes, just like that. Okay, now I'm just gonna come here and copy this. And we're going to change service to timer. And then we're going to change the whole thing, and we're going to put update host file.shell. And I'm going to copy this and just paste that here. So we just described all three of our files that we're going to copy over to our host. We're going to copy over the update host file service, the update host file timer, and the update host file shell script. And we're going to copy all of those over to the temp directory. Now, if you notice, I specified the entire file. And the reason being is if I leave it just as a temp, it will copy the entire directory of dir share. I went through 3 or 4 iterations before I could actually figure that one out. It was kind of unique behavior. But nevertheless, that seems to work properly. And what we want to do is now we want to execute the shell script that's going to copy these over, copy these from the temp directory to their proper locations. But we don't have that yet. So let's go create it. Now, to create the script, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way up, and we're going to use a here doc, or what I call a here doc convention in order to create it. So I'm going to call this script install update host service. And I'm going to assign that to update host service. And this construct inside of is a construct with Ruby that will allow me to just redirect everything inside, everything between the update host service above to the one down below. Okay? So basically what happens is that anything in between here is actually copied into this variable as a string. So that gives us a lot of power to simply write the commands that we need to and keep it moving. So in order to copy that from the temp directory to our location, we have to use sudo. And we all know how well I remember to type the word sudo. So that's one thing which, you know, we definitely need here. Okay, so temp update host file dot service goes to / etc. systemd system and update host file service. And I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to paste that. Okay. And I'm going to change service to timer. And I'm going to change this to our update host file dot shell. And then I'm going to copy that over here. And I'm going to change the path because this doesn't belong in systemd, this belongs in just root. So at that point, we got all the files across to the temp, from the temp directory to the proper designations. What we need to do is we need to adjust the owners, and we need to adjust, well, actually the owners will be root, so we'll just need to chmod them to the proper permissions. So let's do a sudo chmod and 755, and we'll chmod our script here. And then we'll do a sudo chmod 644, because all of our unit files for systemd should not be executable. It's very important not to make those executable units. It's a huge security concern because these units are being executed in a elevated permission, and it has ties directly to the kernel. So we really don't want to, use any type of authority at the file at the file permission level. What we want to do is simply say, look, you can read it, and if you need to, you can write to it, but that's about it. Okay, so let's copy this, and let's do our timer here. So now both of our unit files are 644. Our script file has to be 755. Actually, it has to be 750. It doesn't have to be 755, which will limit that permission. Okay, and let me see, what else do we want to do? Now we want to start our services. Okay, so again, we're going to do sudo. Whoop. Or actually, we want to enable our services. Then we want to start them. I forgot about that. So to enable our services, and remember, when we do enable, it's going to install that service. So, and all we have to do is give it the name. A little bit more than just V. And I will copy this again. And now we will start both of these. Okay, and we should be, save that, we should be all set. Oh, no, we got one problem here. Okay, so we didn't update our running log, so this is 7:15:18, and defining deploy sequence for IP sync component. Now we'll have other provisioning things. For instance, we still haven't added the disk provisioning system, which will follow this one, and then following the disk provisioning, we'll follow this up with all the custom modifications we want to make to each VM machine based upon their machine type. Okay, so let's come down here, and now that we have our script, we got a script to execute. We can come down. Let me see, just let me. Okay. Now what we want to do is, since we have our script defined. Okay, that looked like I had a typo there. Now all we want to do is just define the script that we're going to execute, which was the script which we defined up there. And to do that, we're simply going to use the same provisions. We're going to use the same provision directive, but this time we're going to give it the shell command. And we're going to tell it that this is an inline, because this is what this is. It's an inline script. And we're going to give it the name of the variable. And that should do it. Okay. So at this point, we're going to copy all of our files from our dir share over to our temp directory. We're going to come up here, and once they're in the temp directory, we're going to copy them from the temp directory to their respective places, systemd for the unit file, etc., systemd system for our unit systemd unit files, and our shell script is simply going to go to root. We're then going to adjust the permissions for the root shell script to 750, and we're going to adjust the etc. Systemd unit files that we copied in to 644. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to enable both our service and our timer unit files for systemd, and then we're going to start them both. So let's go see how this works. Okay. Make sure that you save it. And now here's a very interesting situation. As you can see on my screen, my current machines are powered off, which means they've already been provisioned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy test prod. Okay. Vagrant destroy test prod. Sorry, -f test prod. And the second thing I'm going to do is we're going to validate that the changes we made to our script is correct. And then once we find out that it is, because it is, right? Yes, it is. Okay, so now when we have a machine that has been provisioned, in other words, we brought it up, we brought it down, or we halted it, okay, just like we see build prod now, where the power is off. And if I do a status, we can see that build prod is powered off, but yet test prod is not created. Okay, if we ran right now to create test prod, it would automatically apply the changes which we just made. Okay, but since build prod is already up, what we want to do is we want to throw the provision flag. So the provision flag looks like this: vagrant build prod. And what this allows us to do is to go through the provisioning steps just like it was brand new. And we want to put it on the right side of this. Okay, so what this is doing is this is going to re-provision, go through all the steps just like it was brand new, and apply any provisioning changes to the build prod machine as it brings it up. So let's go take a look. Oh, what did I type wrong? Yeah. Provision. Vagrant up, provision, build prod. Okay, and as you can see, we're bringing it up. Now we should see our files being copied to it afterwards. And we're going through the sequence now. It's looking good. A normal customary delay. While we're waiting for this, I can, you know, give you a sample of my wonderful singing voice. Uh-oh. What did I do wrong? As you can see, it actually copied the file over, but now it's saying that the enable... Oh, no. I didn't. I looked at that and said, okay. Yes, I did. Okay. That's system CTL. You're supposed to help me out with that. Okay, so let's go back and just bring it back down. And we'll do a vagrant halt on build prod. But as you did see that we copied the files over, it was running the provisioning. We had 3 files to copy over. We ran one shell script. And in running the inline script, it did not find the command. So let's do that again. And this should be okie dokie smoky pokey. Now we should also go check to see what's in the IP file, because I believe I have a extra line in there. And if that's the case, then we can go ahead and we can put another line in there and see if it will also pick up that change. It should automatically. So why don't we do that? Notepad, dirshare, IP. Oop, it's a little big. And as you can see, I put in a brand new entry. And I'm just going to do the same. It's, we'll call that 40. We'll clean this up a bit since now it's going live. We'll call it new VM 1. And we'll call it new VM 2. Okay, there we go. Let's save that. Now, let's go take a look and see what we can see. Okay. And let's do a vagrant SSH of build prod. And I'm going to do a sudo system CTL, and I'm just going to list the timers to see what the timers are saying. Okay, and as we can see that we have 3 minutes and 11 seconds left. Let me see, for the next run, it already ran once, it looks like. So let's take a look at the IP file. So cat, or etc. host file. Okay. I believe that was in for last time, so we're going to have to wait to see until we see the next one. We don't have the test set up yet, so we can't ping it just yet. So why don't we do this? Let's jump out of this. We'll leave this running, okay? And we're just going to say vagrant up test prod. And this will go ahead and it will provision itself. And while it does, I just created a new command here, new command window. We'll kind of set it so that we can watch that. Now the machine is up at this point, so let's go to cd bdb, okay, And let's do an SSH, vagrant SSH to build prod. And let's ping test prod. Hey, it's unreachable, but it knows it. Let me see. Will it sort itself out shortly? Still saying unreachable. It really should be up by now. / etc. host. Okay, why is it saying... Okay. Yeah, it's still unreachable, still not up yet. Still making all sorts of... Oh, it hasn't installed the guest edition just yet, so until that happens, we can't ping it. Bummer. In any case, it's coming up, and it looks like it's installing the guest editions now, which is a good sign. Silence is not good when you're doing this announcing thing, I'm told. So, while it's installing the guest editions, why don't we take a look and see how our install worked? So let's, I'm going to do this as root. And the reason being is because I always forget that sudo. So let's do an ls of root. And we see our file there. Trust me, it's really not as painful as I'm making it look some days. Okay, let's try that ping now. Ping test prod. And there we go. Okay, now, the question is, can we jump over to test prod? Okay, and let's do a vagrant SSH. And let's go to test prod. So I'm on build prod here, and I'm on test prod right here. And let's do a ping of build prod. Hey, it knows it. Let's do a ping of test prod. Now, there was nothing up my sleeve in terms of magic because you saw it, you know, and I continuously wrote the tape. Okay, I didn't want you to think I was doing anything, you know, because I have very long sleeves here. Okay, very long sleeves. So there was nothing up my sleeves, but yet, you know, our IP sync system seems to be working properly. Okay. We just provisioned test prod, and it already knew about it. And let's see what's in the host file for... Okay, there we go. We have new VM, new VM2. Okay. We saw up here when I dumped the host file that it had this wonderful entry in it. So now let's go see what it has inside of there. cat/etc host. And it has VM1, VM2, so they are identical. This is what our IP system, sync system was supposed to do. So in the next lecture, we're going to begin with storage, and we're going to we're going to be able to provision our storage by logical volume, by thin volume, and by raw disk, or just a regular hard drive. So I will see you in the next lecture. This is Bill Oliver, Boston DevOps Bill. Remember, please hit that subscribe button, okay? If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button, all right? Would you do that for me, please? Are you going to make a grown man beg, huh? Come on, huh? Hey, thank you very much. And don't forget to go pound some keys.